Learn the name, everyone. Tony Petitti. I've not heard it pronounced. That's what I'm going with. Tony Petitti, the new commissioner of the Big Ten. Strike out Kevin Warren from your brain, unless you're, of course, a Chicago Bears fan, which you might be a Bears Illinois fan or Bears Northwestern fan, possibly. So no more Kevin Warren. Now it's Tony Petitti. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, everyone. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis right here. Best discussion, debate, and analysis because of your participation. We have opened up the phone lines, and the link is in the live chat. We will answer, of course, your comments and questions as well, especially those ones that light up in big green, blue, red, orange, pink. Pick your color and leave us a super chat, and we will answer your comments and questions. But let's get to it in terms of the resume of one, Tony Petitti. The Big Ten announced the hiring of former Major League Baseball and television executive Tony Petitti. And if I was the Major League Baseball fan that I used to be, I probably would have already known who he was. As the conference's next commissioner, he'll begin his tenure May 15th. So, folks there in the front office of the Big Ten, you've got a month to mess around. The boss starts on May 15th. Petitti emerged from a group of finalists who interviewed in the past 48 hours. Boy, they crammed those in. And was selected Tuesday after a vote of the league's presidents and chancellors. So Petitti had this to say: at this important and transformational time in collegiate athletics, it is truly my great honor to be chosen by the Council of Presidents and Chancellors to be the commissioner of the Big Ten. Okay. I am energized to work alongside the best athletic directors, coaches, conference staff, and board in the country as together we continue to elevate the academic and athletic experiences and resources for our 14, soon to be 16, world-class universities with nearly 10,000 incredible student athletes. Thank you to the extraordinary people and places that have led me to this next challenge in my career. Okay. Petitti brings a diverse background in sports and media. He is the former COO of Major League Baseball. So he must have worked, yes, when he succeeded current Major League Baseball Commissioner Robert Manfred in that role in 2015. He's got some media experience. He comes from working with ABC Sports, CBS, and the MLB Network. His work with college sports includes helping create the Bulls Championship Series when he was with ABC and working with the NCAA tournament while at CBS. Good experience, no doubt. Petitti also oversaw the day-to-day operations of the CSTV network. That's the current CBS Sports Network. Then he left there and was head of the MLB Network. So in terms of television, is there any possible way or reason to knock his experience? No, none that I can see. Petitti's hiring continues the trend of non-traditional hires from outside the college sports space in the collegiate commissioner set, including the Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff, Big Ten Kevin Warren, and Big 12 Brett Yormark. Well, it's a changing world. It's a changing landscape. It's a changing everything. Media rights, NIL, transfer portal, and we've got Jim Phillips, ACC's hire of Jim Phillips, who just got a contract extension. Why? Can somebody fill me in on that? Why would Jim Phillips have deserved or earned a contract extension? He's been on the job for 2 years. He was hired in April of 2021. This is April 2023. So 2 years on the job for Jim Phillips at the ACC, and they had him signed through, I believe, 2026. So another 3 years. It's like all these coaches getting contract extensions for doing nothing, accomplishing nothing, or having one good season. But that's a different deal. Not a whole lot of conference commissioner jobs out there. So that's another deal. Petitti is currently the co-CEO of the 33rd Team, a football think tank and Nascent media organization founded by former NFL executive and current ESPN analyst Mike Tannenbaum. He has worked for the 33rd Team for the past year. Don't know what that's all about. Petitti takes over the Big Ten at a time when the league is seeking stability and a consensus builder. Really? This league is needing stability. Somebody would have to explain that to me. The Big 12 certainly was searching and needing stability following the departures of Oklahoma and Texas. It received stability through your mark going out and getting UCF, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston. Not that it's completely safe, but based on its mediocrity, it is safe. We've explained that before, based on my perspective. The ACC needs stability. The Pac-12, more than anything, seeking stability. There's a conference in America that has stability other than the transition of the commissionership. That would be the Big Ten. And of course, for those of you who are unaware of who I am, I've not done a very good job of letting you know that. My name is Mark, and there's the banner. And our platform is the Voice of College Football. Some folks out there give me that designation. I will take it. So Mark Rogers, the Voice of College Football, right here. Okay. So again, according to the article written by ESPN's Pete Thamel, respected in the industry, no doubt. I don't know just what he's pointing to. Again, the only instability in the Big Ten right now, the only instability in the conference, we're talking about the bastion of stability. The only one was, of course, the transition of the commissioner's role. Okay. Again, Petitti takes over the Big Ten at a time when the league is seeking stability and a consensus builder. Okay. 2020 showed us that with the pandemic. And I thought that this was a great case experiment. To a certain extent, it was difficult for all of us, of course, across America, dealing with just life throughout the pandemic, or if you want to insert L, pandemic. But it was interesting to note and to just kind of kick back and watch the conferences conduct their business. And we here at the Voice of College Football, of course, were observing that day to day to day to day and making our evaluations and, of course, hearing from all of you. And the evaluations are this, that the SEC is focused and purpose driven on its goals, its mission, its intent. It is by far the most not just stable, prosperous, in tune in regards to priorities, but also everyone is understanding of the priorities and everyone is in that same mindset and culture of what priorities are in the SEC. That may or may not be true to a certain extent in the Big 12 and the ACC, but they certainly do not have the brand. They do not have the ability on the playing surfaces, especially in football, and they do not have the money and the power and the resources and all of that. So they could be running really good organizations in certain respects otherwise, but did not have that. Now, the Pac-12, I will say this for the Pac-12, that at least initially, they seem to be similarly on the same page throughout the conference in regards to all the universities regarding their intent to not play, their fortitude in taking a stand not to play. SEC here, Pac-12 here on the spectrum of play, not play. The Big Ten was the most schizophrenic of all the conferences. And I don't know that that was a reflection upon Kevin Warren. I don't believe it was. Of course, he's the mouthpiece. He's the talking apparatus for the commissioners or for the presidents. And so it should be no surprise to any of us, and certainly was not at the time. If you look at the hierarchy of the Big Ten, if you look at the location of the schools, if you look at, again, the location of the schools, the footprint of the conference, and then put that together with what we know about current academia in America. And I could insert all sorts of insults there, but that's all I need to say. So you know where I stand on basically my respect for academia in America right now. It's pathetic. So it's pathetic on a number of levels. And yes, it's piss poor pathetic. So what we got academia making and inserting itself, but then we had the masses. Fortunately, hopefully this will continue to happen during crucial junctures of decision making within our country. We had the masses overwhelm the elites and win out. So we had the players, the coaches, the parents, the fans still wanting to provide a safe haven for the players as much as possible, but promoting freedom and the American way and promoting to play, take precautions, play, and live our lives. Okay. And those in no other conference came to fruition. Those two divergent and completely opposite motivations and incentives and missions than in the Big Ten. So that's where I'm reading into that statement about consensus builder. Other than that, I don't know where we have an issue with consensus, and maybe some of you can enlighten me on consensus issues within the Big Ten. Thamel says Warren's tenure was uneven as he had difficulty with the setup of college athletics on a clunky and non-linear business where commissioners mostly lack the unilateral power of professional commissioners. Well, absolutely they do. They're dealing with institutions and presidents and chancellors and layers of bureaucracy, as opposed to, like him or hate him, Roger Goodell says somebody needs to be suspended for 10 games. They get suspended for 10 games. There's parts of that I love. There are parts of that could be questioned. It depends on the competency and the leadership of that commissioner. Kevin Warren left suddenly in January with multiple years left on his contract to become the president of the Chicago Bears. His tenure ends Friday. He'll start with the Bears on Monday. Petitti, a Haverford College, 1983, and Harvard Law School, 1986 graduate. That was back in 1986. So fortunately, he may have escaped those places before they warped his mind. Rises immediately into one of the most powerful roles in college sports. We already know that. Okay, television deals that are $30 million in excess of what we see in the ACC and the Big 12. Okay, the Big Ten Conference is an extraordinary position of strength. Tony's capabilities to navigate the complexities of changing marketplace environments, history as a collaborative leader, and passion for academics and collegiate athletics made him the right leader at the right time for the Big Ten Conference, said University of Maryland President Daryl Pines. They're getting a statement from the school with the least authority on the football field. And when I say that, I just don't mean the football field, the football program, the money involved. Maryland and Rutgers still not receiving a full share of TV revenue from Big Ten athletics. And we're coming up on season 10, a full decade of Maryland and Rutgers in the Big Ten. What have they accomplished? Nothing. They've been beaten up and embarrassed. Now, Maryland, starting to show some life, has put together 2 decent seasons. But let's go to the University of Maryland president for a comment. Maybe that's all he could get. All right, we open up the phone lines for you right here at the Voice of College Football. Want to remind you, if you saw on our community post, that we will be watching the Florida spring game together here at the Voice of College Football, also simulcasting on the Florida channel. But we are right now on the main channel and all the Big Ten channels. So great to see all of you. I sometimes weigh that back and forth in regards to, should I just go on the main channel, or this is a Big Ten topic, of course, should I simulcast on all the channels? But many of you are subscribed to a number of channels, so I thank you for that. Again, tonight, whether it be on the Florida channel or on the main channel, we are going to watch the Florida spring game and take your calls at the same time. We are also going to do the same thing on Friday night with Miami football on the Miami channel, watching Miami's spring game from Coral Gables, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Friday, and we will take your calls. We are again dropping the link in the chat. If you would like to join us here at the Voice of College Football, please say hi. And again, I am not going to necessarily make any type of evaluation or criticism of this hire, because I don't know. He has an impressive resume. It's more impressive than mine, I'll tell you that. ABC, CBS, the MLB Network, Harvard Law School. He must have achieved. And I would like to know who else was interviewed. That information might be out there. He was announced on Tuesday. According to Pete Thamel, there were a number of interviews that went on for the 48 hours prior to. So the Big Ten decisive. That's good to see that the Big Ten was at least decisive in all this and made the decision rather quickly. Let's go to the phone lines right here at the Voice of College Football. We've got Game On 513. No, device disconnected. Unfortunately, Game On 513 tried to call us back. We have a call coming in from our buddy Chris. Chris, what's going on today?
Hey, Mark.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, I wasn't aware actually that they had just, I don't know, I just don't keep up close enough with it, I guess. But so you say there was quite a few people, I guess, that were in line to interview, do you think? I mean, I wouldn't know who it would have been. Do you know?
Well, I don't either. We could possibly find out that information. This was announced on Tuesday, and I really should have gotten to it then, but there was just way too much else going on. Not that this is not extremely important, but I just did not have it in my schedule to do anything with it. And I'm just reading in this article from ESPN that they interviewed several candidates. So that's not me coming up with that. And I've not pursued those names, but I would be intrigued to know who those individuals are.
You know, and I just kind of curious, Mark, you sound like you have a pretty good handle on administration. I don't know. Did you maybe you ought to consider putting your name in if there, if you think you might be interested?
I'm sorry.
I'm not saying for the Big Ten.
Very kind of you, but that's.
Well, no, I mean, if you think you know what, I mean, you seem to think you have a pretty good idea on how to administrate. I just thought maybe you might want to try. I mean, hasn't that kind of been the subject of things you've been telling me about?
Well, I don't think I'm a moron when it comes to administration. I've certainly led projects and teams and so forth throughout. But this is pretty grand scale stuff. I have come to this conclusion, Chris. I will tell you this: throughout my, good Lord, 30 years in television, whatever it was, that I've come to this conclusion: hire good people, smart people, determined people, decisive people. Check in all the boxes in regards to that individual. Don't be so concerned. And this is my experience. This is not necessarily the way it has to be, because there is something to, depending on the job, how much experience that person has in that particular job. But the more I worked, especially at ESPN, I came to the determination: hire smart people. Don't be concerned with whether they've got 15 years experience in this job, because there were all sorts of knuckleheads that we hired with 15 years experience in the job that were not good employees, versus hiring smart people that may not. And you can always train people.
Right.
And that, again, it depends on the task. You're not going to hire a inexperienced plumber. Like, you want your plumber to be experienced, because that's a skill set.
Do you have an MBA? I mean, I just am curious because I don't know a whole lot about you. Do you have an MBA?
No, I could only stand 4 years of college. So I just have a bachelor's degree. That's it.
And you said you went to Kent State?
Yes.
Well, did you like that school? Was it a good school?
Yeah, it was a good school. I went there because it was a strong journalism school. That's why I went.
I don't know why I thought that you'd been to Syracuse. Have you ever been to Syracuse?
Well, I took my daughter there on a visit to visit the school. She applied to Syracuse.
Oh, you never went there?
No, I did not attend Syracuse. No.
I'm just curious. I thought
that's the only time I've been there. But her mom didn't want her to be 4.5 hours away. So.
Oh, I see. The only you kind of brought it up, so I hope you don't mind me bringing it up again. It kind of, unless I'm misreading what you just told me, Mark, it kind of sounds like you told me that both Rutgers and Maryland are ill-suited to being in the Big Ten. Am I misreading what you said?
No, I'm sorry. I was somewhat tongue-in-cheek on that, but it was kind of strange that I go through this article. Pete Thamel, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a highly respected college football journalist. But the one quote he gets from anyone is from the University of Maryland president. And I was just kind of joking that, from a football standpoint, from an authority standpoint, in terms of pushing their weight around the Big Ten, they don't have much, and they are still not even receiving a full share of Big Ten revenue.
Well, my
10 years later,
go ahead.
They're 10 years later, so you understand the revenue share from television money, that Rutgers, Maryland, both going into their 10th seasons in the Big Ten, are still not receiving a equitable share. USC will be receiving more money to play football on television in the Big Ten in 2024 than these two will be.
Well, I think I understand kind of in principle what you're saying about it, but I'm not trying to push anything through, Mark. it was kind of part of the reason why. I mean, I'm not, I don't have an administrative background at all, but it's kind of like what I was trying to tell you before with the, with the perspective, I guess. I wasn't trying to take anything from the Big Ten. That's what people misunderstand about, oh, he's trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm actually was trying to give the Big Ten what I thought was a better perspective, You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, okay.
I, for one, I'm sorry, Chris. Can I say something? I, for one, I didn't know that you were criticizing the Big Ten in any way.
Well, no. I guess my question to you, Mark, is, and you've already kind of talked about it, so I'll let you kind of say whatever you want to say about it. But, when I gave you the idea that they might be a better, long-term for the potential growth, I think, of the memberships. I don't know where any of them belong really, but I think if we don't look at the potential growth that could happen, I guess if they do put those teams in a different conference, I don't see. That's what I don't understand. It's if it isn't working, which it sounds like it isn't, that's when you make changes, is what I thought you were supposed to do. But I guess that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, is Maryland, they were 7-6, weren't they? They're not a lot better. They're just a little bit better, right? Aren't they 7-6?
Yeah, they went 7-6 2 years ago, and they went 8-5 this past year. But
Okay, well, I guess there is improvement then. I wasn't aware of that. I thought they were just 7-6. I thought they were just a little bit above average, but I don't remember how good Rutgers was. Were they like 4-8 or something like that?
so I have always thought, Chris, that many of your points are extremely valid. The only thing I'll say is you talk about this situation like there's somebody overseeing it saying, well, why don't we move them there and move them over here? That's not the way it works.
Oh, I know, but I'm just trying to throw ideas out there, see what sticks to the wall sort of thing. I'm just thinking, if they're happy where they are, then yeah, let them stay. But, probably the reason they're not getting a full share is they're probably not. Generally, when that happens, it's because they're not giving much, is what I would think. But I don't know enough about it to really say. But
Well, I'll make this statement and let you respond, and then we'll move on to the next call. But here was the deal. Obviously, Rutgers was coming from the Big East, so leaving the Big East, going to the Big Ten was an enormous upgrade and opportunity for them that they could not pass up in any such way.
okay.
Maryland, a little bit more controversial of a move, especially considering their basketball presence in the ACC, but they still deemed going to the Big Ten a far better opportunity than staying in the ACC. But the Big Ten knew that they are basically stooping down to take on athletic programs that weren't necessarily that coveted, but still they were looking at markets. They were looking at Baltimore, Washington, D.C., New York City. They were looking at the DMV and the Eastern Seaboard to gain cable subscribers first and foremost. And they obviously saw value there too in terms of their athletic programs and their universities, their good schools. But they were able to strike a deal to say, no, we're not going to give you the same share as our longstanding members of the Big Ten. So you will not. Now, I don't know what those percentages are. So I will say that. I don't know if they're making 90%, 60%, what the percentages are, but it's a bit of a slap in the face when USC is coveted, and I believe UCLA has the same deal, to the point that in year one, they receive a full share of TV revenue.
Well, again, I don't think there's a whole lot to figure out about it. I think if they were making money, they would be getting a full share. So my perspective, which is probably way off base, and that's why I call you to get your angle to kind of fix me a little bit. But my thinking is they're ill suited to the Big Ten, either one of them. You can say whatever you want to about putting them back where I think they belong. You told me it was like taking them 20 years back or something like that. But the only thing you might be right, and I'm sorry, it's going to sound terrible. The only thing I might agree with you about is that maybe Penn State might not be very well suited to being in a different conference, but those two I think would be. And I don't really understand why they're still there, in all honesty. I mean, I can understand why they'd bring in USC and UCLA. I don't understand why they'd want to keep Maryland and Rutgers, but whatever. I don't understand. I don't understand what goes into it. I don't understand what comes out of it. Maybe you can help me understand it, because if they're not getting a full share, it's probably because they don't make enough to where they deserve it, would be my guess, not knowing.
You're right there. You're on top of it, Chris. Absolutely. Okay. You're right. And if the Big Ten booted Maryland and Rutgers tomorrow and they did not play football for the Big Ten this season, would anyone care? Not a whole lot of people. No. Oh. Wouldn't be much of a change in the conference.
I have one last question, if you don't mind. Maybe you can help me understand this too. I know Penn State has a long history of being pretty good at football, but do they really bring in a high percentage of viewers? I mean, it's Happy Valley. Does that really bring in a lot of people? And that's the other thing I want to know, because if it's that Penn State makes the Big Ten so much better, then definitely don't let them go. But if they're just another team that just kind of makes a little bit of a headlines now and then, I don't know why they should be there either. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make at first when I said that they might. I'm just saying they might be better suited to being on the Big East. That's all. Maybe not. I mean, you think more than I do. So,
as it currently stands, Penn State is the third best football brand in the country.
No, they won the Rose Bowl. I understand that, but
I'm not talking about that particular, just that team. I'm talking about holistically the program as it stands right now, whether that was in 2018 or 2022 or next year, or unless something drastically changes, we're looking at the third best program in the conference with an opportunity to get better. Or, of course, USC could supplant them, of course. And I'm not saying that Nebraska could never be at their level or better, or Wisconsin. So it's not like they're completely separated from those other schools. But yes, they are a pillar of the Big Ten.
Well, no, I'm not trying to diminish anything that they've done. I actually agree with you. I mean, they wouldn't be going to the Rose Bowl if they weren't especially good and beating. Was it Utah they played? I don't really remember. But anyway, they probably wouldn't be doing that if they weren't right where they need to be. I'm just saying those things kind of fluctuate, though, don't they, a little bit, Mark? I mean, it's not.
Absolutely, they do.
Well, it's not going to be Penn State every year. I mean, maybe it will be every other year or something like that, or maybe every 2 or 3 years or whatever. But
again, Chris, I was not commenting strictly on Penn State's performance last season on the field. I'm talking about the football program.
Oh, okay.
I would have said the same thing 2 years ago when they went 4-5 in the COVID year. I would have said this is the third most important program in the Big Ten.
Didn't they rallied to win though? They started 0-5 and I think they won their last 5 or something like that.
Yeah, my point is not how they performed every week that season. It was despite having an off year, they were still the third most prominent program in the Big Ten.
Well, no, I thought that was impressive though that they didn't just fall apart.
It was, yes.
All right, that's all I have for you, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you.
Good night.
All right. I do want to note before we take the next call what Grayson had to say here. So, Grayson, we'll take your word for it. Grayson has found that in the latest year that has been made public, whenever that is, was that last year or 5 years ago? But anyway, since the Big Ten is a nonprofit, a full share was $54 million. Okay. Maryland received 27.6, Rutgers 11.4. Okay. We will we appreciate that information. And we'll move it on here at the Voice of College Football to our buddy Will.
What's up, Mark?
Not too much. How you doing?
Can I say a little NFL thing for a second?
Sure.
I'm so happy Dan Snyder's finally sold the team.
Oh, did he?
Commanders. Yeah.
Oh, you're a I almost spit out the wrong word. You're a Commanders fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Man, he's owned that team since the late
I believe 99.
Okay, I was going to say 97. Okay, 99. I always like to guess these things, but 99. Okay.
So finally going to have competent ownership of my pro football team. Hopefully.
What was the price tag on that?
I know he got more than 7.5 times more than he bought it for, but
pretty good.
Yeah. But Mark, what overall, what do you think about Kevin Warren and the job he did with the Big Ten? Obviously a terrible start with deciding to cancel the season, but then, he ended up getting Ohio State in the national championship game, and then he got USC and UCLA. So what would be the overall grade for Kevin Warren?
Well, the TV contract will set the Big Ten in a great place for years to come. So kudos to him. Is he the guy that did everything that should be credited with everything? No, there's a lot that goes into that. However, he's the guy with his name on the deal, so he gets the credit, and deservedly so. And it wasn't just this is a ton of money and the Big Ten's making all this more money than all these other schools. It was the vision of the deal in layering it on all those networks. I just think that was, and he obviously took the NFL model. Look at the NFL. The NFL is on all these networks all day, and they promote each other, and you can't get away from the NFL. They're on those two networks all day, and then it goes into obviously the NBC window at the end of the night and the whole deal. And now he's thinking, okay, well, I can hook up with 3 major networks, and they're all going to be promoting the Big Ten throughout the day. So let's say the Big Ten game's on CBS at 3:30. Well, they're going to show Big Ten highlights from noon. They're going to have their game on. They're going to promote the next game, even though it's on another network, which used to be a no-no. But these conferences have, and I think this is more of an NFL thing that, again, they've taken from the NFL, that you are promoting our league regardless of what network we're on. You have to, that's going to be part of the deal. And I'm sure I know it's in the agreement. You will promote us this many times during this window, and you will have to spit out the words ESPN, even though you don't like it, or ABC, even though you don't like it, because that used to never happen. Like, you would think it was ridiculous sitting there watching a game knowing, they refuse to mention, there's, they're kicking off this other game on ABC right now, but we don't say anything about that. They would just hope people, just didn't know, and they would ignore them and they would go away. But now, the leagues hold them to that. And I just think the layering of the contract and the conferences or the networks is brilliant, is a strong word, but it's close. And USC, UCLA, for as much as I don't like it from a holistic standpoint in regards to the way the sport should be run, Kevin Warren was paid by the Big Ten to be the commissioner and push the agenda of the Big Ten. And that was a brilliant move, especially considering what happened with the SEC the previous summer. The best counter move I can imagine. But he got off to a rough start with the pandemic. And he made statements that were not true, that he didn't fulfill. He jumped the gun, canceled the season, said we are not playing. A lot of things were messed up there. And how much of that came from him, I don't know, but he should have put his foot down and said, I'm not making those kind of statements until we have vetted everything out. We can always say, at this time, we're not playing. We continue to monitor the situation. We are continuing to look for ways, but at this point, we are not playing. You don't say we've canceled the season, and then 2 weeks later, we didn't cancel the season. Then you didn't cancel the season. That's not what that means. So.
Yeah, that was goofy. So the new guy, they got Tony Petitti. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that myself. I went Petitti.
I don't know. We'll find it. We'll figure out. So this guy was with the MLB, right? But he was also with Activision Blizzard. I'm kind of confused. Is he with both at the same time?
Well, I doubt it.
Yeah.
He was only with CBS Sportsnet for 4 months. There it is. He's been with the MLB network since 2008.
Oh, wow. That's since that was when it launched, right? 2008?
Sounds like it, yeah. From what I remember, that was at a time when I was watching that thing, 12 hours a day. Practically.
Yeah, Quick Pitch was the show in the summer.
Yes, absolutely.
So
you had Heidi on Quick Pitch. Who else?
Heidi Watney.
Oh,
what was the other girl's name?
Well, you had, We're going to do a Quick Pitch rundown. Everybody hang on. Because I will tell you my favorite host of Quick Pitch was, can't think of her name. Oh, shoot. Anyway, I'll find it. I thought I would be able to find a nice little quick list right there. I did not, though. Anyway, what's up next, Will?
What's up next? Well, spring games are coming up. That'll be fun.
Yeah, so we got a lot of spring games on Saturday. So we'll be here talking spring football. I know Ohio State kicks off at noon. Oh, my goodness. Who else? We've got Georgia playing on Saturday.
I haven't looked at the list at all. I know something's going on with Auburn and their quarterback situation.
Something's going on?
Well, I just saw the Uncle Lou title. I didn't actually watch the video. I saw that you were live, and I clicked you instead.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. We'll have to track down our Auburn guy and find that out. Yes. Well, you had Sam Ryan, and you had Kelly Nash as well.
Oh, Florida's on tonight.
Florida's on tonight. Yes. We're going to do a
Okay.
live Florida watch party.
Graham Mertz. I don't think they're making a bowl this year with him.
Yeah, their schedule's pretty tough. It's going to be a bit difficult for them to pull out a decent record, I think.
Yeah. Well, Mark, should be fun. Check out what's going on this weekend. I'll definitely tune into the watch party if I can. I should be able to. I'm pretty free tonight.
Yes, I am going to change locations and set up to watch the Florida spring game. Hopefully, I don't think I'm going to have any issues with that. That's on the SEC Digital Network.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'll see you, Mark. I got to get back to school work. So.
Oh, school, huh?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, you better get to it.
Down the stretch.
All right. Nice. All right, Will. Go get them.
All right. See you later.
It's our buddy Notre Dame fan, Will, who followed, of course, Chris, which I'm not going to tie a fandom to Chris. I believe Colorado State, but not certain on that one. Ed, we appreciate you being here. Truth. Will George co-host the Gator spring game? We would only be that fortunate. Got a question for all of you. Would you watch FCS content? If we had an FCS channel, would you watch the content? If it was good, of course. If we had people on there that knew what they were talking about. R. Graw would watch the FCS. The Rod Farva, no, not watching the FCS. And no, I have told people that have asked me to do that. I don't watch FCS football. I've got nothing against it. I could enjoy it. I could watch the playoffs and enjoy it, but there's no way I can keep up with it. R. Graw's interested in group of 5. Jackson. EUJR 4SC. Nah. Jason. Appreciate you being here. Jason joins us, of course, on a regular basis. 100 likes, and I buy 5 1 members. 100 likes, and I buy 5 1 members. Whatever that means, Jason, it sounds good to me. So we do have a membership deal right here at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. So I believe we've got about 21 signed up. So we appreciate all of you. And I do need to deliver some extra content for like 2 of you. So hopefully we can get it well past 2. So we are producing exclusive content. And certainly we are going to, of course, pull through and meet all of our obligations for all of you. A couple of people signed up on Patreon today as well. And so please check us out on Patreon. And again, we've structured it in such a way that you can go to Patreon, you can get the Discord there and the exclusive content, or you can, of course, sign up here on YouTube memberships. Jason ran out of room. One month. Very nice. Thank you for that. Appreciate that, Jason. Thank you so much for that. That's very kind of you. So let's see. And we'll get back to football here in just a second, where we've got our YouTube memberships at 21. So thank you, everyone who has signed up. Truck Stop Gumby, Kevin Evans, Shoelace Sooner, Daniel Hemry, Michael G., Erica Goldberg, Tim Armstrong, Rex Bryan, Kata Mura, The Real MVP, David Greenshield, Exploring with Ben, Jason Moose. Don't know who that guy is. Jason Moose. Have we ever seen? John Diadamo, A Damn Beast Media, Craig Cope, Tim Prangley, Joey Foster, Badger, and Bournemouth, Jason O, and DS. So thank you so much for that. And for Craig Cope, if you're listening out there, Craig, you can request a video. We'll get a video out there to you. Same thing with Shoelace Sooner. All right. Rod Farva, Mark, what about OAC football talk? Mount Union, Wilmington, Otterbein, and Capital. My goodness, I barely know where those places are. Capital's in, of course, the capital. Otterbein. I haven't heard that name in a long time. Wilmington, both in Ohio. I don't know where. Mount Union's just down the road in Canton. Yeah, it just came across my plate the other day. There have been people that have asked me for FCS channels or an FCS channel. And then our buddy Corey Bratta said that on the Iowa show the other night, says, Mark, you got to deliver on the FCS channel. Get the likes going, folks. We appreciate that. Noof Dog is letting us know that he sees Devin Brown going to Auburn, or he should go to Auburn. That's a thought. That is actually a thought. Will he go to Auburn? I don't know. Noof Dog is saying he should. He would probably win the starting job at Auburn. He is most likely not going to win at Ohio State. And of course, he will not be playing in the spring game on Saturday. That was announced on Wednesday, I believe. So the latest on Devin Brown is basically that he's got a finger injury, will miss the spring game, will undergo a procedure on that finger on his throwing hand. A redshirt freshman from Utah, been competing with Kyle McCord this spring for the team starting quarterback spot. And Ryan Day says he is expected to resume throwing real soon. Devin Brown, initially a USC commit, number 81 player in the 2022 class. He and Kyle McCord have shared time with the first team offense this spring. Kyle McCord, of course, a 5-star. Michigan fans, I know they are feeling mighty comfortable, the ones that at least we talked to about their position in the Big Ten, and seeing Ohio State's, I'm not going to call them issues, let's call them question marks. Ed Wright, Mark, how long do you give our new Big Ten commissioner the opportunity to explore expansion? Well, that may be what was in mind and what was the impetus that led to the stop sign or the yield sign of sorts given to Washington and Oregon, that there needs to be a commissioner in play. Otherwise, I don't know why they would give them. I was thinking at the time maybe it was Notre Dame related, but now we see that it may be commissioner related. I still believe that expansion is going to be bolstered. Expansion is going to be initiated by two basic factors for both the SEC and the Big Ten. For those two in particular, they survey the field and see value and equate and evaluate talent or value. So, for example, for the Big Ten, who's calling me? Or the SEC, they're again evaluating the value of these programs. So for the Big Ten looking at Washington and Oregon, I think some of that value has to do with the television pie and how that's going to be sliced. But I don't think that that's the end all be all, that the Big Ten says, okay, we got 90 million per team. And now if we add Washington and Oregon and go back to Fox, CBS, and NBC, that they're telling us that they can only give us X number of dollars more. Therefore, the pie is going to be sliced thinner, and we're going to not go in that direction because we want as much money per school as possible. That's a factor, but I don't think that's the factor. That the Big Ten, for example, would sacrifice $3 million, $4 million per year per school to acquire quality schools coming in. So that's factor number one, I believe, for the Big Ten and the SEC. It's evaluating the field and whether those particular schools bring value. But then there's also the value of what we saw, or the component of what we saw over the last 2 years. And that's that the SEC made a move, the Big Ten made a counter move. Now, if the Big Ten makes another move and the SEC determines, well, our 16 we still believe are competitive or better than their 18, the SEC may not make a counter punch, but I certainly believe that the Big Ten would, because I believe that the SEC 16 is stronger than the Big Ten 16. And so we could continue to see this punch, counter punch. And once the ACC is available, the course of college football could once again just take off in a certain direction, with the SEC or the Big Ten gaining the upper hand by going to Clemson and going to Florida and going to Georgia and North Carolina. Will's jumping on board. Will, thank you so much for that. We appreciate that so much. So Will would become our 22nd member here at the Voice of College Football. And so please check out what the membership means to you, what you get with the various membership tiers. Thank you so much for that, Will. Good to have you. Badger and Bournemouth fan, is the American Conference still the best group of 5 conference? That's a good question. Losing arguably its 3 best programs, probably still, although the Mountain West had been the best conference probably up until about 6 or 8 years ago. And now it's been the American Conference by far, not even close, besting the rest of them. And the Mountain West has taken a step back. But now I tend to like Boise State, Fresno State, Air Force. And we're looking at Tulane, Navy, East Carolina, South Florida, SMU. Well, they're probably gone. Good question. Reasonable question. We'd have to size them up side by side. B Bean, I'm liking Florida's stances right now. If they don't play Graham Mertz too much in this game, that they might be able to pull it out. Jason, Mark, do you think Notre Dame finally joins the Big Ten now that Warren is gone? I think that now that we have signed contracts for media rights going out into the next 8 to 10 years for the SEC and the Big Ten, that Notre Dame now knows how much of a gap it's operating with versus the SEC teams and the Big Ten schools. So they at least know now where they stand. They know we make this, and we were operating at this deficit. Now they've gone ahead and secured their next 8 to 10 years. I don't exactly remember how long those contracts go. It's something in that range. And now Notre Dame can plot out their budget athletically. They can plot all these things out, and they can determine, can we maintain our competitive stance against Big Ten and SEC schools operating at X number of dollars deficit every year? Or now that they've got that figure in play and they know what the goal is, they can make a better decision. Now, let's say Notre Dame determines that, we're fine. We don't make $88 million a year. We make $28 million a year by ourselves, but because of everything else we've got going on, we're fine. We want to maintain that independence. We enjoy that, and it's worth taking the financial hit, because they are taking a financial hit, not based on the low bar in the Power Five, but based on what the potential is for Notre Dame. They're taking a huge hit each year, and it obviously got much larger with this last contract from the Big Ten and the SEC. I think probably what's going to happen for Notre Dame to join a conference is that they're going to have to be cajoled. They're going to have to be pushed into a conference, meaning there's going to have to be enough negative factors put in play by other conferences. And if we had a conference commissioner, this could be immediate. This could be like, boom, we did X, Y, Z, boom. Notre Dame suddenly now is forced into this corner and they've got to join. But we don't have that. So the first disadvantage that Notre Dame is now facing is, of course, they cannot earn a bye in the playoff. How much do they actually care about that? I don't know. I don't know how much that means to them. It obviously would have only affected them once during the playoff era, right? Kind of. We don't know if they would have won a conference or what would have happened. But in 2018, of course, they were undefeated. They would have been, just based on somewhat objective analysis and their records and so forth, Notre Dame would have had a bye in a 12-team playoff in 2018 if seeding was done as it's been done throughout the 4-team playoff. But they would not, of course, regardless of how dominant they would have been with an undefeated record, they would not have received a bye. So I don't know if they're thinking, how much is this going to impact us? We are not going to make a cataclysmic decision that's going to impact our football program and all of that just because we may or may not once in a great while be impacted by the seeding of a playoff. That's the first push. That's not going to get it, but that's the first. Now, was that done with Notre Dame in mind? Was that done thinking this is the way we should format this playoff and let's stick it to Notre Dame? Or was it just done to say this is how we should confirm and validate conference championships, and Notre Dame's going to take a hit from this, but we're not even taking them into consideration? I think it's probably the latter, that they knew it was going to hurt Notre Dame, but they didn't do it for those reasons. They're trying to legitimize conference championships. Gregory, week 0 of the 2023 college football season is Saturday, August 26th. Do I like any of the matchups? Well, off the top of my head, let's check out those matchups. I know USC's on the field against somebody. Since it feels like August out today, it's got to be in the low 80s. It was 81 yesterday. So it feels like, wow, football's right around the corner. So what do we have here? Nobody has figured out a time for any of this, huh? Well, so for example, a few years ago, I remember Oregon State and Colorado State playing on the opening weekend. And this is when Oregon State was awful. Connor Johnson, are you with us? Awful, terrible. But I thought, I'm not watching Oregon State the entire season. There is no way I'm going to be watching any Oregon State football for any reason. So I want to watch them play this week. And I watched the game, and it was like 56-38 or something. And for a week 0 game. Hey, give me any football. Now here, I don't see any matchups that are just like, wow, I need to see that game. So for as bad as Nebraska's been and for as ridiculously awful as Northwestern was last year, I watched every play. I watched that game like it was the Super Bowl. It was the first big college football game. So of course, I watched it, and it had no competition. Nobody else was playing. So that's kind of different for me when there's actually 2 Power Fives playing. And even if I don't expect them to be that good, there's something to that, as opposed to my incentive for watching these games, Gregory, is going to be that not that I expect any of these games to really be that good. We saw Vandy beat Hawaii by like 104 points last year. I think it was 63-10. And now they're playing in Nashville. So those poor Rainbow Warriors, is that what we call them now? Whatever they're called now, they're going to have to take a kick to the teeth and then travel for like 42 hours to get home. But besides that, see, my incentive here, I hope that a game like UMass and New Mexico State is not competing with Notre Dame or USC. So I can just be like, I want to see these 2 awful football teams that I know nothing about, that I will not watch the rest of the season. Let's watch them play. Of course, it's the beginning of the FBS era for Jacksonville State. Now, Ohio and San Diego State, that could turn out to be a pretty good game. That's an interesting game that turned out to be a week 0 game. Ohio U, the Fighting Bobcats, going all the way across the country to take on the Aztecs. But from a scouting purpose, I'm going to be watching Notre Dame, and I'm going to be watching USC. Not that they're going to be challenged much. Maybe Notre Dame will be with a new head coach. They're replacing Ken Niumatalolo, and I forget the assistant coach's name that took over. The defensive coordinator for Navy took over. But I'm going to be looking at Notre Dame and USC for obvious reasons. They are the near elite teams, and I want to see how good they look. Yes, truck stop Gumby. I said that about New Mexico State and kind of put them down, but they did win a bowl game to finish 7-6, correct? Badger and Bournemouth fan says Notre Dame is going to make a playoff over a lot of other teams because of ratings and money. That's possibly true. For as much as we talk about there being certain programs that are given preference by the College Football Playoff Committee because of their brand and how much TV ratings, what the TV ratings are going to be, that really has not been confirmed through the first. That has really not been confirmed through the playoffs. The 9 years of playoffs has not shown us that the committee has made a decision based on TV ratings. Last year, during the playoffs, the Ohio State Georgia game and the TCU Michigan game was just behind it, outdrew the Georgia TCU game. So for the first time in the playoff era, the semifinals outdrew by far, by 5 million viewers. The semifinals did better than the championship game. So we know, and of course, you're all binging on my TV rating series. I know that. You're all just binging on that. Can't see it enough. Probably have watched them all 8 times over. But what it's telling us is who draws in the viewers? Well, the only decision made by the playoff committee that could be somewhat questioned based on a brand would be the very first one when Ohio State was selected over TCU and Baylor. But I would make the argument that Ohio State, Bama, and Oregon were all one-loss teams and selected over TCU and Baylor. But since then, if the playoff committee was going with TV ratings, they would have selected Ohio State every time that they were on the bubble, and they did not. They would not have selected Cincinnati to make the playoff because that game got maybe the lowest TV rating of any playoff game in 9 years. We have dropped the link in the chat, so please join the show if you would like to talk college football with me right here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that we've got an Amazon link that is in the video description section of all videos on all the channels. You can find it rather easily. It is next to the word Amazon that is spelled in caps. So grab that link, put it somewhere where you will remember it, and please put it somewhere so we can out-earn Amazon, the company that's worth $1.7 trillion. We are slightly behind, so please help us catch Amazon. And so when you make your, now please let me specify, it does not matter how much money you spend at Amazon, but this is just an example. Spend $100 at Amazon, roughly 2, 5, 8, depends on the product. Roughly $5 comes right here to the Voice of College Football, and you help us continue our work here. We want to be doing this for a long, long time. Next up, we also, again, Discord and Patreon. We have some tremendous deals going on right there. So on Patreon, you grab our Discord link and you can talk college football with the Knuckleheads 24/7, 365. 24/7, 365. Go to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV, sign up there, and you get the Discord link, you get my predictions, you get the predictions from our media panel, and you get exclusive content on Patreon. Also, YouTube members, Will signed up today. Will, thank you so much for that. Check out on the front page where it says join. Don't be afraid. If you click join, that doesn't mean you've joined. That means you can then look at the various tiers and make your selection. And please join us for our YouTube memberships. Saul says, Mark is the best option for the Big 12. Washington State, Colorado, San Diego State, and Arizona State if Oregon and Washington don't want the invite. Well, we know, first and foremost, that Washington and Oregon want to join the Big Ten. Washington and Oregon would be put in an interesting dilemma if the Big Ten is still putting them on hold at the same time that the Pac-12 is crumbling. Then they would need to make a move. They would need to save themselves and probably check in with the Big Ten just in case first and say, you sure you don't want us? Or are you sure, we're ready to join, but we've got to make a move because if the Pac-12 loses, you've got Washington State. That's not going to happen. Colorado, San Diego State, and Arizona State. I don't know why you selected those schools. Maybe that's Arizona State. You've got Arizona State at the end. So the most likely schools to leave the Pac-12 for the Big 12, of course, Oregon and Washington are the most valuable. there's an indication out there that Arizona State, and Colorado would be the most likely to leave because their presidents have been the most forthright in at least making claims that we're talking. There are talks being had. Now, if you listen to our buddy Tony Altomore, who we had on last week, he believes that is not happening. That they have shown their commitment to the Pac-12, not happening. The Pac-12 is good. The Pac-12 is signing a media rights deal, and then San Diego State and SMU are coming on board. I'm going to keep a bit of an open mind toward what could possibly still take place, and that's the Pac-12 crumbling, but not because Washington State's leaving. I think it would be Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, and then we have a situation again where Oregon and Washington would want to check in with the Big Ten before they scoot for the Big 12, because you're looking at, if Oregon and Washington stay in the Pac-12 without those other schools, let's say the Pac-12 loses the 4. All right, they are down to 6. They pick up 6? Yeah, they're down to Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford. And then they pick up San Diego State and SMU, who may not join then. And you're looking at 8 schools. So yes, Oregon and Washington, I would think, would bolt for the Big 12 if that's the case. But I just don't know that you've got the right schools in play. Mikey G, are they, meaning the Pac-12, signing a media rights deal? Because that's what I've been told for many months now. What we were told just a few days ago, Mikey G, that was reported, is that while for months since the conclusion of the season, and even before that, there have been Pac-12 presidents that have told us, we're a couple weeks away, we're a couple weeks away, we're a couple weeks away, over and over and over. There are sources reported by ESPN. I don't know if anybody else has confirmed or anybody else has cited their own sources, but ESPN reported about a week ago that this deal will not be released or announced for months now. At the earliest, the beginning of the summer, so June, and possibly as late as August. So what's the delay? I still believe that in most negotiations, that the party that is the most vulnerable, there's always an unequal distribution of power in a negotiation process. It might be rather close. It might be like 50-48, but it's never exactly equal. There is always one negotiating party that has some leverage over the other for whatever reason. And in this situation, the Pac-12 has like very little leverage. The only leverage they have, or I wouldn't even call it leverage, I would call it value, would be to Fox, or more so to ESPN as a late night partner. No, that sounds a little risque, doesn't it? As a late night partner. Now, I went through the TV ratings, and I know you guys are all consuming those videos about the TV ratings, but I didn't completely look into why the Fox network was not always showing a game at 10:30. I don't know what else they had going. Maybe baseball at a certain point. But ESPN always wants to be showing a college football game at 10 or 10:30 Eastern time on the main network. And I don't know that they want to delay. I know that they don't want to have Boise State and Fresno State be their best possible option. And I mean their best possible option, and their worst being San Jose State and Nevada leading into Sports Center because they're not going to carry too many eyeballs into their late block of overnight Sports Center and college football coverage, studio coverage. But again, anytime a negotiating situation bogs down like this, I look at the party that has the least leverage, which would be the Pac-12, and I think, because the party with the least leverage tends to get desperate and just grasp at whatever they can salvage. Now, George Kliavkoff, if he was a long-standing commissioner, if he was Jim Delaney, if he was the Jim Delaney of the Pac-12 and had this track record that went on for miles, then he would have some equity and some street cred, as opposed to this is his first deal. He wants to show that he's the new sheriff in town and he's the new savior, and he has saved the Pac-12. But think about it. Again, ESPN has the most, not that they need the Pac-12, but they would like to have quality games on late at night. So they would like to have the Pac-12 be that league. And especially since USC and UCLA will be playing some late night games, not all the time, but they will be playing some late night games on the Big Ten Network or another outlet that's contracted with the Big Ten. So that's tough to go up against. The Pac-12 is not only going to have to deal with, they are not only going to have to deal with the loss of USC and UCLA, they are going to have to deal with competing directly with those teams probably 3 times each per season. There'll probably be 3 times a season that USC is going to play the late night window, and the same thing with UCLA, and maybe 4 times for UCLA. And the Pac-12 is going to have to go up against that. Keep in mind that the most watched Pac-12 game this last season did not rate as well as the Ohio State Northwestern game. The Ohio State Northwestern game had more eyeballs on it than the most watched Pac-12 games. All of them. USC, UCLA being number 1, Utah, Oregon, Washington, Washington State. All the best Pac-12 games were superseded in the ratings by a marginal Big Ten game. And now they got to face USC and UCLA in the same time window much of the time. So these partners, these would-be partners of the Pac-12 don't need the Pac-12. Again, ESPN probably the most, but Apple, Amazon, college football is not their business. They obviously are interested in getting into the college football business. It intrigues them. They want to corner that market, or not corner it, but start in that market, get a foothold, get going in that market. So they obviously are negotiating for a reason, because they do see Pac-12 football as being valuable to a certain extent. But if negotiations fall apart, Apple will continue just to run their business. Big deal. Amazon will just continue to run their business. Big deal. We're a giant. We don't need you. Well, if the Pac-12, if negotiations crumble, the Pac-12's done. Jason says, we need more viewers. If you're talking about here at the Voice of College Football, you are absolutely right, Jason. Yes, we do. Folks, you have contact with folks that I don't. there are folks that you know that you converse with every day that have no idea that we are here talking college football with all of you every day here at the Voice of College Football. So keep that in mind. Word of mouth, social media links, whatever you need to do, let people know that we're here talking college football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis right here. Saul, Mark, do you think the crossover of Big 12 and Pac-12 games have a boost in ratings this season? The crossover, meaning Big 12 against the Pac-12. What games are those? Colorado, TCU, Baylor, Utah. That's an interesting game. Oregon, Texas Tech. So there are some here. USC, UCLA, Arizona State. I don't know what their non-conference schedules are. Utah, Colorado. Does Stanford play anyone? Cal plays Ole Miss, I think. Or Auburn. Cal plays Auburn. Washington State. Those are the only three that I can come up with off the top of my head. Oregon, Texas Tech. Love that game. Love that matchup. Utah, Baylor, Colorado, TCU. Do you think the crossover of, I don't think they're going to be bolstered by anything that they aren't originally bolstered by. I think the only impact may be Deion Sanders. There you go. Felipe is right there with me. All right, the Rod Farva, where you can let folks know on Twitter and Instagram. We are trying to build our Instagram and also Facebook as well. We've got a lot of work to do here. Lots of work to do. Well, I do appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. It is almost 6 p.m. Eastern time. So here's the deal for the rest of the day. I've got to record on Oregon football coming up in a half hour, and I've actually got to move my location because of the situation tonight with Florida football. So we're going to be back at 7 Eastern to watch the Florida football game and take your calls. All right. 7 Eastern, right here, the Voice of College Football on the main channel. So all you Big Ten fans, join us. We will take calls on any topic in college football, but we will watch the Florida game at the same time right here at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and we will see you then.